is that where kind of, Daisy and Jojo, you guys have to take everything so seriously, like in the movie, and the kind of like what is happening, and your characters are taking things so seriously, but then Sebastian, you're given so much room to kind of really have fun and be very, very playful. And I think that kind of juxtaposition just adds, it just adds dimension to the film. And so I'd love to hear from the cast, just talking about kind of grounding your characters when things can be going really, really wild at times, like really figuring out the place to like how to ground them.
Yeah, I think, we all sort of were on the same page all the time about trying to ask ourselves what would happen in this scenario, and trying to think of all the logic and what would be plausible, and for me, I think the most important scene was always the, Noah waking up in this house and discovering for the first time that she's chained to this thing, and then looking at this guy again, and sort of like the memory of everything kind of transpiring. And Daisy's so amazing in that scene. I think that scene alone, and her performance in that scene, basically sets the whole heart of the rest of the movie for me, because we experience it with her, and she grounds the entire experience so realistically as she emotionally, is attempting to process what just happened to her. And so I think there was a level of realism that we were always constantly talking among us and trying to achieve. And the other thing that I always loved about the script that was in there from the get-go, credit to Lauren, was that there were these elements of humor, and a very specific tone, and I do think humor sometimes helps us process difficult sort of questions and trauma and difficult things in a better way. So again, it's you only have 2 hours, right, to tell a story, but I felt like there was a very fine line between sort of that real groundedness that we were seeking, and then the humor component to add to some of that sort of dark popcorn moments, like you mentioned, that we were striving to find, and I think we did our best with that.
Asking about getting into the headspace of the character, and then also asking about whether or not there was kind of inspirations of other like cinematic villains. So I'll ask that to you, and then maybe even Mimi and Lauren would want to talk about if there are inspirations in your head. So Sebastian.
Well, I was sending Mimi a lot of videos going up to the beginning of this movie, of me watching basically every single documentary on any kind of serial killer I could find. And then I came across this really, really brilliant documentary by Alex Gibney, who's an incredible documentarian, and called Crazy Not Insane. And he was featuring the work of Dr. Dorothy Lewis, who came up with sort of, the questions of multiple personality disorder. And she interviewed Ted Bundy, out of all people, and many serial killers. And actually, I was lucky enough to be able to meet with her, and the production arranged for me to have this one-on-one with her, and I sent her the script, and then she really helped me kind of like create this backstory for Steve, because there were pieces there of how to go around it, and so a lot of that came from her work and working with her, I guess.
I want to know about the this kind of epic showdown, all kind of happening, this final like sequence, and maybe we can, Daisy and then Jojo, just kind of talk about like it's there's a lot going on there. Is it this kind of attack frenzy that you guys are going into? Is it cathartic? Is it just exhausting? Is it both those things? Like what's it like getting in that specific headspace? And Sebastian, anything to add from your perspective? No.
I don't, sometimes, like, if you're, first of all, doing anything stunty is like extremely difficult. Like, I always have such an appreciation for these, for these stunt performers, because they go in there and they're just full on. Like, it doesn't matter. You can change anything on them and they just do it, right? But I guess like here, like one of the things that is sort of interesting is getting beaten up, because like how you fall and how you take the hits, I'm like, there's skill to that. So anyway, so I was very ready for that.
And then for the cast, kind of having something to compare it to, and working on stuff like previously, is there any kind of like surprising differences that maybe not so obvious, the obvious differences between shooting something pre kind of pandemic lockdown restrictions, or how was it for you?
Yeah, well, I think I think it was best for everyone to have some space. No. I was just, all I was going to say, it's just what Daisy said. Like, you know, we were talking about it earlier tonight. It was just, you know, to be able to have those 2 weeks of quarantine that we had to do to enter Canada were actually really, really helpful in a weird way, because it really, for me at least, it really helped, get me focused and like take the time to zone in on the script, and I felt like it was just a great. And then by the time we got out and we were ready to meet with and get started, it was just, you just don't have that time usually, that kind of isolated focus. So it did help.